All right, and welcome back to Dave's Sports Betting Corner. We're here, Week 5 Survivor. I've got Franco again with us. Frank, I think it's safe to say you barely survived last week.
Yeah, it was not a comfortable Sunday in week 4 for me. The Eagles started off slow and they could never pull away. And then the Commanders actually took the lead at one point, and then next thing you know, I wasn't watching the game, but next thing I know, it's in overtime. I was like, great. Like, I shouldn't have done it. I went against my divisional rule, and they just eked out that field goal at the end.
Yeah, Frank picking the Eagles last week. It was, at the end of the day, he got the win. It was a good week to use them since their schedule does get tougher in the next couple weeks. But I was sweating that one. It was one that on our board would have taken a lot of people off the board. We didn't really have too many people get off the Survivor board. It's been kind of chalk last week. Mainly people picked the Eagles like Frank did, or they picked the 49ers like I did. 49ers won comfortably against the Cardinals. Not much I really want to say about that one. We knew it was going to happen. It was really just if I wanted to use the 49ers this early, which I did. So before we get into our top 3 for this week, I'll just run down what Frank and I have picked so far. For myself, it's gone Washington, Giants, Chiefs, 49ers, 2 trash teams and 2 teams that can win every week. Frank, he went Baltimore, Dallas, Seattle, Philadelphia. A really solid list. We're still 4 for 4. Like I said, we have 2 strikes apiece in our Survivor League. About half the league is out at this point, and we're just going to keep riding. Hopefully one of us can get this money, so we're talking out our picks. Frank, before you give us your lock this week, what 3 teams are you looking at to possibly choose this week?
So this week's tough. I think there's a lot of games with very close spreads. I think there's only 3 games that the spread is higher than 4 points, which is kind of crazy. It is the NFL, though. Even the game like the Chiefs and the Vikings, where you think that would be such one-sided, is only a 4-point spread in Minnesota. So overall, pretty tough. My top 3 that I'm looking at is obviously Dolphins versus Giants. High-powered offense in the Dolphins. Even though they lost last week against the Bills, the Giants are a whole different league than the Bills, so I don't really see them having much problem in New York. And then the Lions and Panthers are also another one with a huge spread. This one's 10 points in Carolina. This one's iffy for me. I don't fully believe in the Lions yet. I know their offense is high-powered, but the defense is suspect. And until we get to about week 8 and they're still having a good record, I can't really confidently pick them, but it is one of my top 3 this week. And then other than that, we have the Bills versus the Jags. I know you have Trevor Lawrence in fantasy, and he's just been off to a slow start, but we know what he is capable of. So last year he was a whole different player, so is he going to figure it out this week? I mean, he's at home against the Bills, down in the hot Florida weather. Who knows? I mean, I don't feel very confident there, but compared to the other games, it makes it to the top 3 this week.
So I do have this 2 of the same as you here, Frank. Before I get into the 2, the one I don't have with you is the Jaguars and Bills. So the Jaguars technically are at home. They're not in Florida. They're in London this weekend again. It is essentially their second home, though, and those London games can get really weird, so that's why I'm going to stick away from that in my top 3. But I agree with you. The Dolphins, are as hot of a team as can be, even though they just lost to the Bills pretty handily. I feel like this is a definition of a bounce-back spot for them. They had a huge win against the Broncos. The Bills beat them pretty good, and now they get the Giants, who just look completely lost on offense. And how is Danny Dimes going to keep up with the Dolphins' offense? I feel like if they get to 20, it's over. Danny Dimes can luckily put up a touchdown, if that. So that one, I'm sure that's going to be a high usage this week as well as the Lions and Panthers I'm looking at as well, because the Lions, they're off to a hot start. I think they have a pretty good chance to win that division. They have to be pretty favored, and the Panthers are looking like they might be going for the number 1 pick again this year, which I don't even think they have. I think the Bears might have their pick. So the Panthers just can't put it together right now. It doesn't matter who's at quarterback. I don't think they'll be able to keep up with the Lions either. And then the third game I'm looking at, I kind of talked about it a little last week. You use them, the Eagles. They're away at the Rams this week. The Eagles, based off their schedule, to me, it's this week or next week I have to use them. And next week it's at the Jets. The Jets look pretty good against the Chiefs, and after that the Eagles have a pretty tough schedule where I wouldn't want to use them in Survivor at all. So even though the spread's just 4.5 for that one, I feel like I'm hitting that point in the season where it's like, I mean, if I gotta use them, it's now, because we want to use teams before they become a complete toss-up. Frank, should I go Eagles this week? As the guy who used the Eagles last week, should I use them this week, or do you think I should save them before I give my official pick?
If you're looking at this week or next week versus the Rams, or next week versus the Jets, I like them more against the Jets more, just because Zach Wilson hasn't put it together fully yet. And then when you look at the Rams and Matt Stafford, I know they're still missing Cooper Kupp, but they could put up points if they really have it that day. So in my opinion, I would save them for next week, but that's for you to make.
I think I'm going to do that myself here, save him for next week. Cooper Kupp is questionable this week. He could be back. I don't know what that's going to bode for me in fantasy because I have both Kupp and Puka. Might have to start them both this week. But no one wants to hear about our fantasy teams. Probably too much here. Frank, give us your lock of the week. Who are you locking in week 5 of Survivor?
I actually am going to sit here and lock in Detroit in Carolina. I'm looking ahead at the schedule. The Dolphins are actually in Carolina next week. I'm thinking about that next week. I just think the Lions versus the Panthers, it's a good week to use the Lions. Like I said, I don't really feel that confident in them going forward, but I think I can get away with one here with the Panthers. Just knock them off the board in week 5.
Yeah, and actually, Frank, I'm right there with you. For the first time this year, we're riding the same exact pick. We're going with the Detroit Lions. I think the Dolphins are a team I trust more as the year goes on. As long as Tua can stay healthy, that'll be the big if. They're going to be a team that probably ends this year with maybe 3 or 4 losses, if that. And that gives us plenty of opportunity to use them down the line. The Detroit Lions, they can falter at any time now. I know they're kind of becoming America's favorite underdog story, becoming bigger. But I think it's a great week. The Panthers don't look good at all, so I don't know how many times this is going to happen this year. It might make us both look like fools, but we're riding the same train.
Yeah, I've made fun of multiple friends this year because they've taken losses on the Lions, and I'm putting it at risk to fall in that same boat.
Absolutely. So that is going to be it for this week. Frank and Dave are riding the Lions. If you're in a Survivor League, let us know if you're going to follow us or fade us with another pick this week. Frank, do you have anything you need to shout out this week?
Let's go Detroit. Big Jared Goff fans this week.
And don't forget about the Orioles, Franco. We got the playoffs starting this weekend. Hopefully we can get that Game 1 win before we get our Survivor win.
Yeah, let's do it. And then Sunday we got Orioles Game 2 ALDS right in the middle of Sunday football. So Sunday's going to be a wild one here in Baltimore.
All right, and that'll wrap it up. Tune into the Orioles. Tune into Lions versus Panthers, at least on Red Zone. Frank, thanks for tuning in this week. Next week, we'll see if we're still undefeated, still both have one strike. Thanks again. Everyone, thanks for listening. Gamble responsibly. Have a great weekend.